Welcome to the Spiritually Inspired Podcast. My name is Jason Barniski. I'm a spiritual teacher, yoga artist, and author. The purpose of this podcast is to be the match, igniting your spiritual fire. Enjoy the show. Hi everyone, welcome to the Spiritually Inspired Podcast. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Ty Gayton, and she's also known as Ty the Spirit Messenger. Ty was a big skeptic prior to 2012, where she underwent a huge transformation and spiritual awakening. Going from addict to spirit messenger in just a few short months, Ty was taught primarily by her guardian angel and her spirit guides how to take care and protect of herself as an empath and medium. As a divine channel, Ty has had the opportunity to be the conduit and communicator for Source, Jesus, Mary, Buddha, Kwan Yin, Archangels, Joseph, Elijah, and many more. These ascended masters and teachers have provided healing and teachings through Ty to thousands of people over the years, and she's still in constant communication and connection with them. She recently left the field of practicing as a psychic medium and performing readings to open the online spiritual academy known as the Messengers of Spirit. Now she's a world traveler, offering her talents as a spirit-guided coach where she supports others in their transformation with the combination of teaching, healing, and guidance. So thank you so much for reaching out to me, finding me for the podcast, and for being here. Ty, I really appreciate it.
I'm really grateful too. Thank you so much for having me. And I think we were just divinely led to connect. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. And we already have a second podcast lined up after this one.
Right. And so we have an interesting plan that we're going to do. And throughout the course of this podcast, Ty has done some channeling and basically some medium work for me, but also for you, the listener, for society as a whole. And we're going to go through those. We're definitely going to have our normal conversation and dive in deep as we do. And then we'll have another amazing podcast too, where she's going to channel questions for me during the second podcast. So we're really excited about this one. And anyone at home, this is a great opportunity. I didn't get too many questions from listeners before, but if anybody wants to ask Ty a question specifically, definitely post on our social media like the questions, and then she can address those during our next podcast.
Yeah, I'll be interviewing you.
Yeah, so that's gonna be amazing too. And I'd like to share just something I'd like to talk about first is so you'd been doing a lot of mediumship and a lot of work in general, and you shifted a little bit now to doing a course. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about why you did that shift from doing just direct on mediumship to teaching people to do the work themselves.
Well, absolutely. Honestly, my passion has always been teaching. I was actually a childcare administrator and preschool teacher years and years ago. So I spent about 8 years teaching children. The online space is kind of what all of my guidance through the years has always included teaching. I wasn't ever just giving advice. There was always homework and lessons that came through with my stuff because that's just part of my nature. And the healing stuff was right in the beginning. As soon as I spiritually kind of woke up, my guides taught me how to send healing energy. So it's always had those three parts, but I didn't know how to fit in this nature into the niche that's being provided. And then the online space required, because I want to be mobile, I want to be a nomad, I want to be an earth traveler. So that's kind of why I've shifted out of one arena and into the other. Aside from that, Mother Mary asked me to. She asked me to step back and stop feeding people for a day and teach them how to feed themselves or fish or eat for a lifetime, that kind of mindset. So I've known for years that the academy was coming and was, emerging, and I've always been excited about offering that. There's kind of some yucky vibes in that whole psychic mediumship arena. There's kind of a lot of ego. a lot of people comparing and a lot of like real estate almost mindset or behavior. And I love just stepping back and sharing the Academy platform. The idea and the concept is supposed to be that there'll be many of us teachers, many of us masters, offering our services and experience and providing courses on there. So I don't have just one course. I already have about 6 of them up already.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that idea, and we've talked about that in great depth before. Is instead of giving people a fish, like teaching them how to fish. And I think I've caught myself before too, is when I've been feeling down and then wanting to go to someone who did mediumship, and then got caught in that person telling me what I wanted to hear, and so then I went back just to keep hearing what I wanted to hear. And life is not always about, what I say is real love is not about what we want, it's about what we need.
Right.
And I love the fact that you're teaching, and that's a recent message that has come through in my own teaching of yoga, is I heard, Jason, stop doing yoga with everyone and teach them yoga. Because what good is it if we're just going to teach people these spiritual, if we're going to do the arts with them, but then they're not going to learn and to do them on their own.
Well, it's like that, house of cards. The whole deck falls if they don't learn to stand on their own. And I think it's really about, learning to practice that peace within yourself, the daily mindset within yourself. And intuition is a massive part of that, and that's what I'm really passionate about. I have a free masterclass going on right now where I basically start off the whole thing talking about how our intuition is as magical as learning how to smell a rose. This is something we were born with. We're just never really taught how to use it. You and I talk a lot about discernment. We tell people that enter in our lives, that we mentor, use your own discernment, but nobody really talks about how do you learn how to discern. And so this free masterclass that I offer, it just goes through all the different clears, scientifically, how we're receiving that data, how we're processing it. And for me, that's kind of like a gateway to every other course that I've built on top of that. You have to understand how your body senses receives information and learn to interpret that before you can really add on anything else. So if you don't know what your specialty or gift is, I really don't like to use the gift because I think we all have it, but that's a language that most people understand. If you don't know what your strong point is, then that's what I kind of help people with practice exercises. In another course, I help them hone in on where they're strongest, and you'll develop the rest of them along the way. But the intuition, I think, is the biggest game changer right now to getting people self-aware and understanding their bodies, their mindsets, everything, to unfold all the rest of it.
So yeah, you answered one of my questions. I was going to ask if everyone has the ability to channel. If everyone has the ability, and then maybe to some people have a greater ability, but you answered that too, is that we have different gifts and different kind of unique talents.
Right. I believe that we're all hardwired a little bit differently, and it kind of coincides with our nature. Like for you, your body is all about movement. So your strength and your intuitive abilities, I would imagine that your strengths are probably in your core, in your gut. You probably have excellent gut intuition. My feeling is you're probably also an empath, and so you probably process a lot in your heart too. Like when you're down, you probably literally get like chest, I would imagine maybe like anxiety or like chest pain or something when you're struggling. It might even feel like asthma sometimes for some people. And I would imagine probably with you being an empath, you probably get goosebumps or chills when you know you're getting some sort of validation or signal, or your body's reacting. All of that is data processing. It's simply science. It's there's an electromagnetic field made by our heart, and it picks up all that information. So everyone has psychic senses. Everyone does. And if you affirm, validate, if you listen to it, if you use it as your compass and let it guide you, then the rest of them just get stronger and stronger too.
I call them, I don't even call them goosebumps, I call them God bumps, because I know when I'm getting them, I'm getting a direct message. And for me, what really lights me up in my own life, and definitely I feel when I'm going through emotional stuff, it feels so heavy, and like empath feeling other people's stuff. And for me, for sure, like heart opening back bend stuff is amazing. And to do the practice has taught me that we're all psychosomatic people. So our mind, like our psyche's attached to our physical body. So for me, and I'm a Cancer, which I don't think you knew, but is like an extremely emotional sign. When I get in my emotions, it's so intense for me that if I didn't have the physical way to work through my emotional stuff through my physical body. And lately what's been coming up for me is like empathically is I can see other people's emotional trauma through their physical state. So in doing yoga, when somebody's shut down physically, I can begin to see emotionally what's going on with them too. And at first I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Is this my ego making this up? And when I sit back and breathe and just witness the whole thing in equanimity, it's always dead on. It's amazing. So I believe very much we all have our own ability. If people want to find your courses, where do they like find out more information about all this stuff?
messengersofspirit.com, and the first one I ever created was the Empath Empowerment. One of my clients titled it for me as "You Deplete Me." She came to me and she said, you know that movie line when Jerry Maguire says, "You complete me"? She says, my husband does the exact opposite. He depletes me. So I said, I'm going to borrow that, and I'm titling my Empath Empowerment course, "You Deplete Me." I just love it. So it just teaches you how to shield and protect yourself, which is what I was going to ask you next. Since you're around all these people and you're kind of helping them, discharge and transform and transmute and move that energy, because you're helping them, you're facilitating that for them, the movement of that. Are you protecting yourself as an empath? Because there is a discharge there. You're taking it all on.
For me, working with my students in a yoga studio, and I love you asked that question. Like, I'm looking at my goosebumps now. But for me, in the yoga studio or in that arena, and I'm sure it's the same for you doing empathic work, is we create a structure there to do it. And so when I close the door to the studio, I lock the door. That energy stays there, and I don't take that stuff with me. But the people that I live with and that I'm around a lot of the time, then it's harder to close those doors. The people, like I'm living with the co-owner of the studio and her family right now, and it's hard sometimes to close the door on feeling empathic with other people, and then the emotions get so connected so I can feel what they're feeling and my reactions to that. So it gets hard to close the door. So what do you recommend, or what are ways that we can, as empaths, that we can protect ourselves and tune in sometimes when we're taking on too much of the world?
Yeah, well, I think first you have to understand, following the thought that empaths are literally created to transform and transmute energies. That's what our physical house, that's what this ability is kind of for. However, you can decide when you have that energetic faucet on or off. You don't have to, So the biggest thing is to practice that mindset of no strings attached. So cord cutting meditations, cord cutting exercises. No matter how much you love someone, you having that energetic cord is not healthy, whether someone's living or past. I've had people really fight me on cutting cords with somebody that's crossed over. It doesn't mean you love them any less. It just doesn't, it gets you out of this bonded energetic commitment. So you can get kind of like a 360-degree view of situations, which sometimes you need, because you can be way too invested or involved in somebody else's trauma or experience that you're not taking care of you, which at the end of the day, your divine right is to do what's right and best for you. And so the Empath Empowerment course gives you step-by-step tutorial. There's like a 90-minute video, and I go a bunch of fluff. I go right in one thing after another with a bunch of different techniques that my guides taught me. And then I also have an energy pack. I connect with Source, and I say, what do the listeners of this audio file, these empaths, need? And then I channel the clearings, the activations, and the downloads. So there was one Source guided me to do a clearing and an activation for our sacral chakra, because Source God said that we as empaths we step outside of our role and we take on too much in certain scenarios. We don't know how to discern balance in our relationships. And so when I did that activation clearing, I recorded it, and now it's part of the course. I took it on for myself too, because anything I get that's fresh and new, I need it too. And so I'm in a situation right now. I just kind of came back to Florida to visit, and somebody that I'm staying with is going through a bunch of trauma and a bunch of issues at work. And the old version of me would have tried to jump right in and help and handle and advise, and this time I'm just really seeing my role to take care of myself, some R&R, relax, and just allow this. Unless she asks me for advice or she asks me for help, then I might, consider it, but I'm not jumping in like I used to before. So I can already see the evidence in my own life to respect the scenario, the space of someone else, and just let this thing play out unless they feel guided to ask for my opinion or my help, which they haven't. So I think that's a big thing. Cord cutting, knowing your role, and understanding like what's mine, what's ours, what's yours. That's a big, big thing for empaths. Just because you see an issue there doesn't always mean that you belong in it.
Right. You know what I've learned as you were speaking, I thought about this a lot, is it took a long time for me to learn this, but as an empathic and taking on this devotion to like loving others, I really like that, is like thinking about this great devotion to the well-being of others, and that's my purpose, is to be here to help others, to love others. And sometimes I feel true wisdom is letting people go through their own story, because like as somebody who's made it to the other level of the game and who's completed this whole game, I look back and I just want to give them that, but I realized that to complete the game for myself, I had to play the whole game all the way through. And now I'm at a place where I can look back and start designing it, maybe a different way of playing the game or a different game itself. But real wisdom is letting people play their own game. I know yoga can heal cancer. I know for a fact. I've done it, well, not me, but I've guided others to use yoga. But if somebody's not ready and they're still in the whole game of I have cancer, I want other people to feel sorry for me, and I want to run through this whole thing.
One treatment that can work. Yeah.
So real love, and it's hard too. It's really hard for me to do this because I want to do it for them. I want to give them a fish. but teaching them how to fish is letting them go through their own game. And when that person's ready, and so that kind of makes it, I guess that's just how it works, and I have to be patient too. And so I'd love to talk about that, as we spoke about it before, and you asked me, had I gone through anything in my own life emotionally recently? And we talked about that. It was very interesting. And we just mentioned that Ram Dass quote is, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a weekend with your parents. Yeah. And so I was with my parents for 3 or 4 days. And, as I was growing up, my dad is interesting. I took on like I took on an anger issue from the way that my dad dealt with a certain circumstance in his life. And if he would cut himself or nick himself or get a little bruise, he would get really angry about this little thing. And he would flip out, and then the anger would expand into everything, and he would be so angry until he went to sleep angry. And I saw this pattern in my life. I saw it when I was about, let's say, 10 years ago, that I saw my dad did this as I was growing up, and I learned this behavior from him. And so I chose to be the broken link in this rusted old chain, and I want to make a new chain for my descendants in the future, where we don't have to get angry, and I want to end the chain. And it was like, wow, this incredible freedom for me. So when I was at home these past couple of days, well, even backtracking some more, the other day I cut my finger. A really good little cut on my finger. And
what a test.
When I got that test, I saw the anger come up, and I sat there and I didn't react. And I just said, feel this. Feel as deeply into this moment as you can, and don't react at all. And I went in very calmly. Somebody actually, because I was so calm and peaceful, somebody said, let me clean that for you, and clean my finger and dress the wound. But I saw that normally what my dad would do would freak out and flip out. And So when I was home this weekend, it happened. And this hasn't happened with me and my dad for about 10 years. You know, maybe a little bit more frequently, but like he had a little cut and got very, very upset over it. And I saw this and I was like, whoa. And everybody in the house felt uneasy and they felt terrible.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, it brought up this old trigger for me. And I was like, well, I don't have to do that anymore. And now the empath in me wanted to help him so badly. And I went up to him at the moment and I said, is this anger really helping anything? And we like connected in the eyes and he realized it didn't. And the energy of his anger was going so much. So later on, I spoke to my mom about it and I was like, I really want to help him because this is what I'm here to do, is to help people. That's what I do now. And I help myself. So I know I can help him too, or really show him how to help himself. So this is a conversation that he and I have some work to do too in the near future about not just breaking the link, but we can go back and purify it. And he, like on his behalf, he learned that from his father. And his father learned it from, or maybe his mother, but this is something he was taught, and this has been happening for thousands of years in my ancestry. And so I can be a part of not only breaking the chain, but transformation in general. So for me, it was really an interesting trigger, but wow, I want to show up differently. So
yeah, I get it. And, you know, thank God, you know, you're there for him to have that moment of reflection. And he was open. He responded well to that. Like he was open to the adjustment. Because sometimes that's not language that people want to hear. You know, it's not something they're willing to accept. So do you feel like you were able to bridge a gap there between where you were and he is?
Well, I think in the moment of the anger, see, this is the hard part, is when we have this emotional thing, is to sit in stillness. Like when I cut my finger, I was like, oh, here it comes. So now let's be the observer and let's sit back and watch this experience, right? So when the whole explosion happened, and I asked him, is this anger helping the situation? Or the fears, whatever like emotions that are coming up, are these emotions serving you? Are they helping you? Are they improving this situation? And he couldn't answer. He stopped for a moment and then went back to the anger. So the seed was planted, but the work is there, and we still have to do the work. And I mean, you have to think the work that we're doing, you know, it's like programming thousands of years of conditioning. Literally, it could go back thousands of years. So I get the patience, but for me, the work was saying, hey, I can't change all this right now. So I planted the seed, and I recognized that's all I could do, and then let him go through his story. And so I think the work for me is to sit down and start meditating with him for 5 minutes a week in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, and then maybe meditate with him 5 minutes a day on the phone. And that's the work that we need to do together. So that actually is perfect to lead in for my next question for you is, what is tuning in like for you? Or what do you do to tune in? What's the process like?
It really is different depending on where I'm at. And I'll be honest with you, I spent about a year and a half in my own apartment, pretty much secluded from the outside world. It was kind of like recovery for me at the time. It was my first time at life outside of this chaotic, like hamster wheel of the Groundhog Day and addiction thing that I had been in forever. So I transitioned, and I literally had a lesson from either God or my angels every single day, and I learned how to drop into stillness and oneness. I had some incredible experiences. So now life, I can do it in 2 breaths where I'm centered and synchronized, kind of, and connected. And God told me that, you know, he said to me that if I ever wanted to have a conversation with him, just call on his name 3 times. So that's another thing that I'm able to do, just to kind of go quiet in the noise. And then if something's coming up for me, no offense, but a lot of my conversations with God are very personal. So maybe I'm a selfish being, and I just want to know, I want to understand my own life. But I have this belief that we can bring about world peace by finding peace within ourselves. So whenever I need maybe an attitude adjustment or a different perspective, that's when I kind of call in the presence and ask for support or advice or an explanation. Help me understand this. So anyway, I'm able to kind of channel the presence wherever I am, and it's just a couple of deep breaths. I love doing spirit circles with people. One of my favorite things is helping people further develop their intuition, communicate with their guardian angels and spirit guides. So one of my favorite things to do is to have those gatherings where there'll be like 8 or 10 of us, and I kind of bring the vibe. I kind of anchor it in, so we tend to be able to hit a spot in meditation that most people are not able to define or get to on their own, but we are when I'm able to kind of be in there and channel that, and it's really beautiful, and people opening up to their gifts or their clairs or whatever you want to call it, and being able to communicate with their own divine support teams. That's kind of some of my favorite stuff to do.
Do you ever do those via Zoom, those circles?
I'm actually scheduling a call. Spirit asked me this morning to do start to do one on May 31st. Actually, Jesus and Mary want to show up and have a conversation about an assortment of issues, but one of them being twin flames. So I was asked this morning to schedule that. So yeah, if you join my spirit tribe, I kind of set up a thing through Patreon where I offer spiritual support to other people. So for like $5 a month, you can participate in these once a month calls where I kind of host that. If you want me to kind of like coach you through those calls and do energetic clearings and stuff, it's more like $11 a month. But I wanted all this to be very like easy, affordable pricing. So that you're getting shivers.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps right now. I would love to do that. I'm thinking about that. I would love to participate, and I know a lot of people too, and I'm sure people listening would also do that too. How do we get involved in that group? I love that.
I sent you the link, and like I said, it's patreon.com/Ty the Spirit Messenger, and then I've got all these different kind of like tier levels laid out of spiritual support that I provide for a monthly investment. And so the calls, when they go live, like the one we're doing on the 31st, you can participate. It'll probably all be done by audio, but I would be open to starting like a once a month classroom where we're kind of on video and me.
Oh, it's really cool. It's really cool to do those. I've done some meditation group like that, and I would absolutely love it. And I know a lot of my students would really like that too.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's tying in that global community. I love it. And I'm going to have all those links from at the bottom of this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm asking, I have them. I'm asking just for everyone listening because I want them to get a hold of you too and learn from you.
Sure. I would say the gateway to all of that would be the your Powers of Intuition Masterclass. If you sign up for that free masterclass, you're going to end up getting all of the follow-up emails inform you that I have this available and that available, and so any notifications are going to come out after that. That's kind of your free opt-in right there to get all that information.
I want to ask you a question really quickly. Okay, so dealing with addiction.
Yes.
Can you speak to that? Like using our spiritual practice. Just I feel that a lot of people have messages coming in, and they don't know how to deal with this tremendous, powerful, divine source flow of energy. And so to escape the discomfort of not knowing how to process it, they turn to chemical substances. It could be food, it could be drugs, alcohol, it could be other things. So, I mean, for me in my own life, that being able to harness this powerful energy, it made being in me so much more enjoyable. And so maybe you could just speak to that from your own experience.
Sure. Prior to 2012, I had migraines all the time that were unexplainable. I was pre-diabetic. I was, addicted to pain pills, shopping, alcohol, all this stuff. And as soon as I begged God to help me with this sickness in my life, because it was just everywhere. It was just gross, and it was everywhere, and I was over it. That's when the empath conversation started coming up. So, I think that us being empaths, that means that we take on the physical and emotional symptoms of other people. You've chosen to take it a step further, because the way each one of us as empaths feels a certain thing, but how we we choose to transform that dark into light, that energy, to change it, we each may do that in a different way. You've decided to show up as a teacher in your father's life, and that's a wonderful thing. That's more your wisdom. That's your personality, your vibration. Not all empaths are going to choose to do that the same way. Some of them might be energy healers. So anyway, as soon as I kind of woke to this, I began to understand that I was using all those things to numb out all these feelings I didn't understand. So it was really about doing a lot of inventory about my own personal crimes against the people in my life. And as you're taking ownership, it ended up being the 12 steps. I didn't realize God was taking me through the 12 steps until I showed up to a 12 step. God spoke to me 9 months into being in sobriety and recovery. God said, I want you to go to a meeting. And I had never been to a meeting. And I realized that I had already done like 10 of the 12 steps through, God's training and advice. So I just had a couple of things left to take care of. But it's really about, like I said, taking ownership and then of your own behavior, and then realizing, like, backtracking it like you did with your father and his father, and you realize that it's often a systematic behavior that's either been imprinted or shown to you by society. And so I think it's allowing for there to be an explanation, but still having responsibility. Like, what am I going to decide to do with this? And harnessing it into game-changing behavior. That's what you're talking about, like breaking cycles. Okay, so I have this thing, and I think when you're waking up and you're realizing how powerful you are, it's important, I think, to dissolve the pattern of addiction by realizing when you're seeking outside of yourself for support, for help, for nurturing. I am constantly asking myself, if I find myself leaning or reaching or wanting something, I'm constantly asking myself, why am I doing that? What's my motive? Who's in control? Who's in the driver's seat with that? What is that about? Am I scared? Am I fearful? Am I expanding into it, or am I contracting? What's going on there? So I meet a lot of psychics and mediums. I have been the healer for healers and the medium for mediums and the psychic for psychics for years, because I was so great at developing my own intuition first and communicating with my own guides first before I went into service, that they thought I had some hot wire connection that they didn't have. But a lot of intuitive people go into service before they do their own self-care and training. But a lot of them have had history of self-medicating just to try to numb it, and what I'm saying is, with enough practice and meditation and guidance from your guides or the right mentor, you can actually learn how to, like, dial this down, turn it off. The empathic thing, you can shield it through certain scenarios. There was no way I could go into, like, years ago, I had a partner at the time who had knee replacement surgery and a bunch of other health issues. So I was constantly in physical rehab therapy places. I would literally pass out in the waiting room because I was picking up all of the physical ailments from everybody in the waiting room. I knew that this person had fallen downstairs. I knew that this person had been in a car wreck. I was just psychically receiving, and I would feel it in my own body, their personal injuries. And I was just a wide open container for all this trauma and stuff. So it was really important.
So how can empaths deal with that? Because, like, every time, for me in my life, every time I go into Walmart, which is like the most low vibrational corporation that causes so much not positive energy around the planet, I feel like I've lost 15 pounds when I come out, not in a healthy way, but like just totally drained. So for me in my own life, like, before I go into Walmart, what do I do?
What do you do? Yeah. Well, and this is in my course, but there's a few things that I like that I advise people of. Number one, see your energetic field as like a force field. Like, literally imagine some sort of protection. My sweetheart imagines he's in some Iron Man suit. To each his own, whatever you want to call it. But make sure you're and your imagination is it's your playground, but it's also your safety construction. This stuff works. So some sort of protection. And then also it's about what intention that you're setting. When you're in there, if you're a person, I know these people that are constantly energetically scanning, they're constantly reading. when you're in public places like a fair or a festival or a store, Walmart, or anything, do not connect. Do not connect. I had somebody text me one time and they wanted an intuitive answer to something, and I used to be really quick to respond to those, even through text message. And I realized I was in a Sam's Club. Do you know what that is? It's like the warehouse version of Walmart.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I'm connecting intuitively to get that information right now, because you'll end up with a bunch of debris or energetic hitchhiker things coming home with you. Like, do not connect intuitively in public spaces outside of yourself. You'll understand
outside of yourself. So I can tune into my own field. Just don't tune into Walmart's field.
Don't do it. You're literally mopping their floors and their everything. The other thing is, the selenite one is your very, very best friend. I keep them with me all the time. And my guides showed me how to use it almost like you would a hairbrush motion, starting from top of the head all the way down. They told one of my clients that if she did that after she went grocery shopping, she would have the energy to actually cook dinner for her family instead of ordering pizza every time she went grocery shopping. She would go grocery shopping and come home and have to order everybody pizza, because she just didn't have she was an empath and she was picking up all the debris. That's when this conversation first started. So I'm giving you a few examples of the things, but one of the biggest things is a daily practice. I have a daily ritual that comes in the empowerment course, and you're basically asking to be almost like rinsed off your force field, to be more protective. There's a whole step-by-step process. I usually do it in my head while I'm brushing my teeth, or I'm asking for all that stuff, or I do it in the shower. But the intention is to be free and clear of any lower level unwanted energies, and then mind your space. Like, you know that phrase, mind your business? Like, mind your space. Don't try to connect with people out in public like that.
Oh gosh, those are so good. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. Thank you for that. Yeah, now I don't have to worry about going to Walmart every time.
No, just don't try to intuitively connect with the person in front of you at the checkout. It's just not a good space for you to be doing that, and it's not really, spiritual etiquette. That's another chapter in my course. Just because you can connect with somebody's energy doesn't mean you should, because there's boundaries with space and respect.
And you learned all this intuitively.
My guides taught me a lot of stuff.
Wow! So I have 2 questions for you, and I'm writing questions down. It's so good. It's so good. But I want to ask you what is the definition of intuition to you? And then let's start with that one, and then I'll jump into the other question. What is the definition of intuition?
It's funny that it's actually in the Masterclass. So the Webster's dictionary has a definition, and it's basically information that you receive without having any logical reasoning of receiving it. So for me, I use intuition and insight and even psychic awareness. I use them all interchangeably. So intuition for me is that, inner compass, that inner guidance system, your internal GPS.
I love that. That's so good. And so now my next question is, what is it like working with your spirit guides or ascended masters? What's that experience like? How do I know if that's really what I'm doing, or I'm making it up, or just speak to working with your spirit guides? Yeah.
I think it's let's see, they all have different personalities. And I think it's important to know they all have different kind of like job posts. Like your spirit guides and your guardian angels, they have different responsibilities in your mentorship and your growth. Spirit guides are not usually with you for a lifetime. They're kind of like a college professor. You actually know them from previous lifetimes. And when I do guidance for people, a lot of times your spirit guides want them to know the history. I was once this in your previous lifetime. I was once that. You asked me to fulfill this role for you. You asked me to teach you about XYZ. Once you master that level, they're usually swapped out with another guide. You get another teacher trainer. Guardian angels you're usually born with, and they're always so magical. They usually tell me they want me to tell the client when I communicate for them, how they usually showed up for them when they were children. There's usually some bond very early on in childhood or at birth. And some of them show up to the children as animal spirits, as fireflies, as a light in their room. It's always beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So guardian angels are more about like protection and giving you like fun and magic and making sure you have a good time in your spiritual development. Spirit guides are more like life coaches or training or college professors. And then even the ascended masters and archangels have such different personalities to work with. And you can call on them and ask them to be in your space. I only recommend working really with one at a time and asking them to step into your energy field and then step back out, and you'll sense certain things. This is something I train people to do. You'll sense certain things either in your energy field or your body, get a sense of their nature. They each have their own kind of sign language, how they talk to you. Some of them, again, will use like number sequences. Some of them will use like lines in a book that feel like they're just jumping out at you. Some of them use like song lyrics. Some people clairaudiently hear, which for me, before I realized I was clairaudient, it kind of reminded you of how Bumblebee talks in Transformers, where it's just these one-liners on the radio. Did you watch the movie Transformers?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so Bumblebee his whole conversation is always just lines from the radio and movies, and that's how my clairaudience used to work, and my guardian angel Hope used to use that. So I just thought I had random song lyrics in my head all the time, and they would be basically like the punchlines to jokes. The best way to communicate with them is to pretend like you're basically a student in a classroom. Sit down, say I'm listening, I'm ready, and then just see what comes to you. A lot of people that come to me, they're like, I don't talk to my guides like you do. I'm like, well, are you opening the door? Are you providing the space for the conversation? You know, unless you listen to a doctor, he can't tell you what's going on with you. The same thing with your spirit guides and guardian angels. Unless you give them permission, that's in my angel speaking course. I tell you the 5 ingredients to having a confident communication with your divine support teams. But permission's a big one. One of the exercises that I guide people to do in a guided meditation in that course is to imagine, you know how like on Halloween we turn the porch light on and that tells the trick-or-treaters it's okay to come by, and then when we're out of candy we turn the porch light off?
Yeah.
So when you want your guardian angels or spirit guides or even ascended masters or archangels to come into your space, I tell my students to imagine a light coming on over top their head. And that kind of just says, I'm open for visitors, you're welcome in my space, and I'm certain, it always happens, certain that things will start coming to you. And I give people a checklist in that course of sign language, signs to be looking for them, because that communication will start.
Yeah, I just felt a little shift in me, because as you started talking, and I'm sure you could see in the video, but I was reminded of one of the first podcasts I did with Lucia Evans, and she's a conscious relationship coach. And I asked her how to improve communication, and her number one thing was to listen, to be a better listener. And so then I started listening, and whoa, there's others around me here too. And I love the idea of just listening, because the mind is so fast, so running, and in our society, I call it, we have an epidemic of oral diarrhea. So like we think so much stuff that we just speak incessantly, and sometimes not the greatest thing comes out. And in my life, it's when I started listening better that I became a better teacher, I became a better friend, a son, just a relationship partner. Everything improved when I improved listening better.
Yeah,
so I'm listening.
100%. I think even when you're psychically aware, in tune, you might find yourself often, especially if you're telepathic, finishing other people's sentences or feeling like you already know what they're going to say. And when you're wanting to connect with your guardian angels and spirit guides, it's almost like you need to dial that back a little bit and just allow what they're trying to convey to come through, because you really want their support to be as the best well received as you could possibly allow it to be. So by not, finishing the thought for them or finishing the sentence for them, and being in that container of just open receptivity of just listening. Yeah, definitely I would say 5 to 10 minutes a day of just being, open, receptive, allowing, listening.
I'm thinking now, when that happens to me all the time. Like, I want to finish someone's sentence. And what in me wants to finish that is my ego.
Yeah.
It wants this affirmation that my intuition's right, or that there's some knowing. To make that better received, it would be to allow them to say it on their own. And then, wow, my intuition really is on point.
There you go. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I think it helps us to understand each other better when we don't actually take the words out of someone else's mouth and we just let them say it. And you'll find that the more you are listening, the more you are being heard also. If you find that people are not listening to you, ask yourself if you're actually listening to other people or yourself.
You just make me think of my guru, my teacher, Tim. And Tim is like this world-renowned guru. He's the teacher of teachers, in terms of yoga. He's world famous. He's incredible. Tim really doesn't say very much in the yoga studio. He says very little. Outside of the studio, he'll talk more. But in his zone to teach, he really, like a great teacher, says very little, but they say the right things at the right time, and it's more about listening. So, wow. So with that in mind, I want to shift into more of a listening, and I know that you've done some work and you did some meditation, and I also love the fact that the spiritual practice is huge, because that's what this whole podcast is about, is reminding people to do their own spiritual practice. So you said before, when you do medium work for others, you do your own meditation and then you take notes on it. And so you had a message for me, and then a message also for our audience, for the world. So I would love to listen to that message.
Awesome. Well, and I just want to clarify, if you don't mind, I created a 5-week meditation course that came from, again, advice from my guides. What they told me was every person, this might be important for you to hear, that every person on the planet has their own sublime route to meditation. So for every human being, all 8 billion, there's almost like 8 billion different styles of meditation that's going to work. And so my course wasn't shaped into you have to fit this format. It was in providing them ways to open up to their best style of meditation. So guided meditation for me is often helping them to ground the energies that come in, the guidance that they're getting, and then feeling a lot of that intuition. So I think probably our styles of meditation might be very different. Yoga practitioners kind of, I had to dispel this myth that was implanted in my mind years and years ago. I thought that if I practiced meditation, I had to be in that super postured yoga pose with my fingers in the thing and the for hours on end. I thought that was, when somebody said, Ty, have you tried meditation? That's what I thought. I was going to try to master being some guru with flies landing on me and me not even flinching or coming out of it. I thought that was what my state of meditation needed to be. So that's usually one of the first myths I dispel when I'm teaching my meditation class, that my goal is not to get you there. My goal is to get you where you're most comfortable. So I take people through a different routes to get there. So the message I got for you, are you ready?
Yes.
When I did my meditation earlier about our show, I feel like we're probably going to have a little bit of conversation around this, and I was so eager to do that as soon as we dialed up with each other today. So, God spoke to me earlier and said that forgiveness is your center. When I say that, you might not understand what that is, because it's kind of in a language that it's from a conversation that God and I have had. It's to my understanding that every person on the planet kind of has a soul mission, let's say, right? And we're kind of given this duty or job or maybe we're just allowing it to happen. But it's your seed of greatness and sometimes that seed of greatness is embedded in soil that was rough from a negative experience or a hardship. Sometimes I call it the blessing from a battle, like a battle blessing, where you've gone through some really tough thing. So what God said was that he wants you to turn this into this forgiveness, this seed of greatness. He wants to turn you into a vessel where you channel and sell this as a service. He says that you apply healing in the lives of others by being the example. So he doesn't want you to worry about the when or the how, but just say yes. And then I was told that you had the option to be doing workshops in 6 to 9 months where you're offering up people the example of you being the teacher of forgiveness. So I don't know how you feel about that, or if it resonates with you. But there was a conversation.
Is it self-forgiveness or forgiveness to others?
The answer I'm actually getting is that they're kind of one and the same. So I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not sure that you resonate with this, but the guidance that I got about it was really solid. So usually, just to use myself as an example, when we're implanted with a seed of greatness like this, for me, my center is love. And the majority of my hardships in life have been having love withdrawn, denied, taken away from me. I almost died as a child from failure to thrive. That's where I was left in a crib and unattended and was malnourished for so long that I actually stopped growing, stopped crying for food, and was almost dead on my first birthday. I ended up hospitalized for a few months. My mom had gone through a breakup with my dad, and she disassociated from me, and I was just kind of left there for weeks on end. So my suffering with love being denied or taken away from me started like way early on in the beginning. And so this was a theme that just kept progressively showing up in my life. And now this is the thing that I end up teaching people, how to love themselves. I've also been united with my divine counterpart, my twin flame. So I've succeeded that situation to the point now I'm at the complete opposite end of the spectrum with it. And now I'm able to be an example to others of how they can love themselves and then generate the most compatible partners in their life. So I feel like God's working on you to do something very similar with your practice. And I was just curious, like, how dead set are you on just teaching yoga?
Well, I think they're one and the same. Again, because like, yes, I love yoga, and yoga's a great modality.
Yeah.
There's so many like different styles of meditation, and all these different practices. I feel they're all very superficial, because like at first what we're trying to do is still the waters of our mind. So once we still the waters, then we can start diving deep in those waters. So I'm about depth more than, so my whole thing is to go deep. So I love that idea, and I'd love to learn more. And I definitely have this deep energy. And as you said that about forgiveness, there's, another very interesting story. But I believe forgiveness is like the root of the most, it's the seed to one of the most powerful, abundant forces in the universe. And I'm just thinking about this story. I don't even know if I want to tell this story, but I do. So I was in prison for like 2 years. And I don't know if I told you that, but in an earlier podcast, I talk about this whole story. I was in prison, and I used it as one of the best things that ever happened to me. I'm so grateful because I dove so deep in my spiritual practice. And every Friday to Saturday, I would go into silence. Well, when I was in there, I would be doing my writing. I would do yoga and meditation for 5-6 hours a day. When I would in silence, it'd be even more. Well, one day, this skinhead guy got offended that I was in silence, and he came in my room and he stabbed me in the eye, and he was like trying to kill me because he felt so offended that I was in silence.
Wow.
And I've been doing martial arts for over a decade. I was in meditation when this happened. I had my eyes closed. I was in meditation, and I feel this ding, and this thing hit me in the eye. And I came out of it and instantly got put into fight or flight and held him back, and I never came out of silence. A few hours later, I had to come out of silence after meditating on what just happened. And Christ spoke through me at that moment. And I didn't realize that until a little while ago, that's who was speaking. But I told him at the moment, like, the reason I came out is he asked my forgiveness. And I said, man, I'm so sorry because I can't forgive you.
Right.
And he's like, what? I said, I can't forgive you because I don't blame you.
Wow.
And I don't judge you. And because I don't blame you and I don't judge you, I can't forgive you. And this guy who tried to kill me a little while, he started pulling his own hair out and he started punching himself because he needed me to forgive him. He needed my forgiveness. And that power of unconditional love.
Right.
It first came through forgiveness, but then when I took that even deeper, it was, whoa, I don't even blame you for doing this. I don't even judge you. And there's like this super deep equanimity. And so for me, when I get to that place of equanimity, whoa, then I can see the truth. Then I can communicate with Source directly, but I have to do the work. That's where yoga is so important for me, is because yoga puts me in that place of equanimity. So my daily spiritual practice, I have an intense one, and it's designed to develop an intense equanimity. So for me in my own life, wow, like I almost started crying when you said that. It was so beautiful. And for others and myself, and it's a recurring theme in my life where my ego makes this big old story, and then I require forgiveness from someone else, and then really it's about me forgiving myself and about transcending forgiveness to unconditional love and equanimity.
Well, I can tell you, God's had a pattern a lot lately of calling on people that are walking the talk and asking them to shine their light more. And I think a lot of times those of us feel a little unworthy because we know the trails where we've been. Like, surely someone's, probably more whatever than me for this job, but you're definitely being, you don't have to take it from me. You can go within and ask for yourself, but my feeling is that God would like to use your greatness, to use your story, to use your vessel to teach this to other people. And I feel like the workshops would be layered with different elements in it, but at the end of the day, your offering to humanity is about forgiveness. That's the thing that you've been kind of cursed and blessed with, and the transformation, because God's hand is in that. God's hand is on both sides of that and elevating that. And so you shining that light for other people is a very remarkable story. So don't you have a book coming out where you talk about this? Or do you already have a book?
Yeah, I do. I have I wrote my first book. It's called Ancient Wisdom for Modern Enlightenment. And this fall, my next book is coming out. It's called No Mud, No Lotus, 10 Tools to Transform Your Suffering into a Blessing.
I'm excited about this. That's so awesome.
Thank you. And I keep hearing is like, like my heart and soul is singing. I would love to do that and to dive deeper. And what I would really like to do is I want to do the first seminar or workshop with you. So maybe I do the yoga and the pranayama, and then you teach me more about what you do and we do in the afternoon. And we could kind of bring some people from the yoga world in, and then we could bring people from medium and psychic to even deepening their practice and really combine our forces. So we'll have to plan something maybe for the end of the year.
Right.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love it.
Awesome. I do too. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah. Wow,
I'm
so
excited
good.
about what you're creating. So, are you ready for humanity's message?
Is humanity ready for its own message? Yes.
It was so big. It was so powerful. I had to write it all down. So, the message from Source to humanity is, it's time to wake up. It's time to discern and know your heart well. It's time to live by example. It's time for a daily practice. in place that helps you to surrender what no longer serves you and align to the sublime living, prosperous, healthful, and full of miracles.
Oh, wow. Wow. Can you read that one more time?
One more time, a little bit slower probably.
Well, it's because as you're saying it, I'm going so deep, and then I have to come back. Yes, one more time, please. It's so good.
It's time to wake up. It's time to discern and know your heart well. It's time to live by example. It's time for a daily practice in place that helps you to surrender what no longer serves you and align to a sublime living, prosperous, healthful, and full of miracles.
Beautiful. With miracles, I'm reminded of an earlier podcast I did with an amazing empathic spiritual teacher.
Nice.
And he said, performing many miracles creates the ability to perform macro miracles.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
And you could even say a bunch of mini miracles creates a macro miracle. So
Right.
if you want to create this life of abundance, start with the small things first.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I used to think that I was the most unlucky person in the world, and this was before I understood the laws of attraction. So this demise I was always in, I had no idea it was self-inflicted, self-created. This drama, the hamster wheel I'm telling you about. And I think once I shifted out of that and I realized I could start asking, this whole ripple effect changed. And I started, anytime I want or need to manifest more money, I just start giving things away. And, there's just this whole karma bank, I think. So that's stuff that I love, teaching other people how to manifest as miracles. On my website, when you go to it, it says, what miracle do you want to manifest today? Because I just think that should be, abundance is everywhere. It's all the time. And I just think that we fall asleep and 9 to 5 doing. We just forget to ask for what we want and know it's out there.
I just have to say this, like, even before you shared the message with me about me, and then this one for all of humanity, like, I just felt, and I'm speaking energetically, but also physical sensation, and it maybe perhaps because we were talking about, well, we hadn't started talking about forgiveness yet. But in my heart, I just felt this incredible love and excitement, like so much. So I feel as a conduit or a channel for energy, wow, you are extraordinary, remarkable, and unique. And I don't want to pat anybody's ego on the back, but wow, for everyone listening. And I'm sure they're feeling the same way too, because wow, I feel so remarkable right now. So I'm so grateful that you are sharing your light and love with the world, Ty. I'm just so happy the world has people like you.
I am too. I attempted suicide several times, and I'm just really, the last attempt was back in 2005. My favorite number is 13, and God told me 7 years ago that 13 years after my last suicide attempt that I would be amazed at my life. And I just spent the last 5 months abroad, and I am a magnet for miracles. It's a miracle that I'm living, and each day to me is just such a tremendous gift. I am so grateful every single morning that I get to wake up, and I am grateful that I get to spend time, every individual I come into contact with, I'm just grateful that I get to be in their space, and to, even you're remarkable. I'm excited to the stuff you're going to be creating and bringing. I love the idea of us working together, and excited for the next podcast.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for you, and I'm grateful for everyone listening too, because we're all about changing the world. And you said it earlier, is like about changing the world outside of us. Like, the best way to change the world outside of us is to change the world inside of us. And then when we open our eyes, we see the whole world change. And I just wanted to mention that about spiritual practice. And that seems to be the underlying theme of this. And I love it. Is that it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to hear this huge pop and then everything changes. In Alcoholics Anonymous, what I'm very familiar with, they said when you hear that big pop, it's really your head coming out of your butt.
No, but I definitely think, like we said before, intuition has a lot to do with it, and it's really about discerning and sensing those signals in your body, you know. And I think as you stop numbing and you start to sense, you start to feel that language. There's a language barrier there. We were never taught to listen to our heart, to pay attention to the signals. We were never taught these things. We were taught the difference between hard and soft and what smells good and what smells bad, but these other senses, there was no language built around that. And I think, you know, then it got put off to be like this scary or woo-woo thing, this strange out there. Some people have it, some people don't. So definitely get involved in that intuition masterclass.
And the internal, listening to our internal senses. Yes. And so that what I'm saying about like the spiritual practice is, if for everyone listening, don't necessarily look for overnight change. Just do your practice and know that all is coming. And so, you know, there's been students that I've been working with for 3 months. And then I look back at where they were when they first started and think about how they came in from 3 months ago, and we're all astounded. We're amazed. So even take that 5 years down the line. And so the same way we look back at how we were 5 years ago, we can create the future we want in 5 years from now. With our intuition also, we can create that too.
100%.
So I just everyone out there is like, be patient, even beyond being patient, be compassionate with yourself, and just do your practice, do the work. Which, oh my gosh, I don't even want this to end. This is so good. But the ultimate question I ask everyone, and this is so appropriate for this podcast, is when things are tough in your life, when you're going through difficulties, what do you do to stay inspired to keep doing your work, to keep doing your practice?
That's interesting. When you first asked me, I was like, oh man. Because the truth is, I have in the last, 5 or 6 years, I've struggled with staying inspired, and I had to kind of dial back. God asked me, like, what is your motive for doing what you're doing? Why is it that you're doing what you're doing? And that's usually when I feel off base or off track or down. That's what I have to tap into. Is my motive, and my motivation is to lead by example and teach others about love. But to get to that, I usually have to remind myself in some ways of those things. And so for me, the beach and sunsets and my own history, it wasn't that long ago that my life was very, very different, or that I was almost not here. And sometimes I've gone through periods where I'm like, what am I doing this for? Where is this going? Where does this lead to? And I don't know. Because I've spent so many years teaching people how to communicate with their guardian angels and spirit guides, I get these random emails that say, Ty, you'll never guess what. And I get a whole story about some magical circumstance with somebody in their guardian angel or their spirit guide or something with their intuition being spot on. And that's the stuff. It's almost like these little sparkles and stars that light me up and remind me, like, this is the magical circumstances in my life. And that's where I've, taught someone how to fish, and they had a good day catching it.
I love that. I love that. So good. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Wow. So everyone, I'm going to post all the links on the bottom, and I want them to go see your site. And if anybody has any questions, send them to me or to you, and we can address them. And also, get the conversation going in the chat beneath this. But yeah, I think, wow, I'm so excited with everything you have to share with the world. I can't wait to learn more. And I'm really looking forward to the next podcast. So thank you so much,
You're
Ty.
welcome. I'm excited to have the Academy online and all these courses available, and I'm excited to share this with people, like-minded people like you, and I love the idea of us collaborating, and I'm so looking forward to the next call when we switch places.
Yeah, me too. And I feel, wow, it's interesting, but I feel personally just a little bit more connected to those energies. And perhaps societally, we're told that this is not real, that this can't happen, that maybe crazy people do that. And so for me, it's almost been like unconsciously shutting down those aspects of myself. And talking with you makes me feel safe and okay to listen to my inner guide.
Yeah. You were born with it. The intuitive part of us, we need that data processing. We use that information for our own healing, guidance, exploration, connection with self, connection with others. Like, it was source. Like,
when I was a little kid, I used to walk around, and I'm an only child, so I spent a lot of time by myself. I used to walk around and have conversations with God until I learned that people weren't supposed to do that, which is not true. And then I stopped having those conversations. And then when I grew up, I realized, got into meditating. Like, I can do that all the time. That's what we're here to do. And the more we do that, then the closer we are. So.
Agreed.
Wow, thank you again so much, Ty. I can't wait till next week, and thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.